закончились.
Ми будемо битись за неї до кінця.
Namaskar and welcome to ISSF SAMVAAD. SAMVAAD is a platform where we invite the best and the brilliant minds to discuss and deliberate on topics related to international relations and geopolitics. In today's episode, we will be discussing the war in Ukraine and India's response to it. To discuss this, we have noted geopolitical thinker and political scientist Shri Krzysztof Iwanek. Shri Iwanek, he is the head of Asia Research Center at the Warsaw University. Shri Iwanek, he is the columnist at the Diplomat magazine and he has taught Hindi in Korea. Shri Iwanek also writes for the ISSF blogs, and one way or another, whatever Shri Iwanek does is connected with India. Sir, namaste, Dobrajin, and it is a pleasure to have you on our show. Thank you so much for...
Namaste, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, before we delve into the details of what India's response has been, sir, we'll ask a question related to your home country, that is Poland. Sir, for Poland, sir, this war might have been a big deja vu, because if you see Poland, sir, the history of Poland, whenever there is a war in Europe, Poland has always been at the receiving end of the most brutal receiving end of the conflict. If you look at the World War II, the two World Wars, and even wars in Europe before the World Wars, Poland has been at the most brutal receiving end. So, what has been Poland's response to this war, this Russian invasion so far?
Yes, thank you. Well, indeed, it's a very troubling event for us, and mostly as a society and certainly as a government, Poland has stood on the Ukrainian side. There is no doubt about it. We see Russia as a threat, not only to Ukraine, but to us as well. If I am allowed to use a certain comparison, it's a bit as if China invaded Nepal. So the questions of what would India do would be kind of similar to what would Poland do when Russia invades Ukraine. Of course, fact that India has much more of a military potential than Poland does. But in a nutshell, that is, both the Polish society and the Polish government have been hosting Ukrainian refugees. I think it is fair to say that we've been rather open in this and helpful as much as we could in this regard. Also, it needs stressing that many citizens of other countries have been evacuated through countries neighboring to Ukraine, including Poland. This includes the Indian citizens who have not been evacuated through Russia, it must be said, but through countries like Romania, Hungary, or Poland that border Ukraine. And the Polish government is assisting Ukraine in a number of ways, both humanitarian as well as providing certain military products, like all of Europe and all of NATO is doing. However, we're not directly involved in this conflict.
Right, sir. Sir, I think, sir, it is time that we move on to your domain of expertise, that is India. Sir, if you look at India's response to the war in Ukraine, our argument has been that, look, our engagement with Russia has been different from what Western world's engagement with Russia has been. If you look at our history, sir, Russia has been supplying us with weapons at a time when no country was willing to do so. So Russia, when the erstwhile USSR, it has provided us with diplomatic support. It has provided us with support in the United Nations Security Council on very critical issues like the Kashmir issue. So do you think that when the Western world, they they sort of say that India should do more, or India should need to do a realignment of its policy towards Russia. They are playing a very Eurocentric or a very selfish view. What are your views on this, sir?
Yeah, certainly. I must admit that Poland's reaction and India's reaction to the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been very different. So what I will say now, let me put it this way. It's kind of like there are two persons within me, not really two persons, but two views. One is my personal one, which is, informed, influenced by who I am and where I live. That is, I'm Polish, and being such, I'm completely on the side of Ukraine, I must stress. And personally and privately, I would like to start with stressing this. I would prefer all countries to help Ukraine and not to help Russia. And I would, prefer also India to condemn the Russian invasion and not cooperate with Russia. That is my personal private view for sure. However, as a person that deals or tries to analyze Indian foreign policy, I'm aware that my personal view is not the same as the view of the Indian government. I may dislike it, but it's a fact, and I guess it's a fact I just need to endorse. So I'm aware of what you have referred to. I am aware that India has received, including crucially, military products over decades, as well as other important stuff like natural resources and assistance in building nuclear power plants. And in a nutshell, I am also aware that India wants to not be aligned with either the US or the broader West and Russia, but New Delhi prefers to keep a simultaneous partnership with both the West and Russia. And once again, I would like to stress that my private view is that I would prefer India to be in the Western camp. But from what I can see, this is not what New Delhi wants to achieve. New Delhi wants to achieve a certain equilibrium between the West and Russia. Whether this will be possible in the longer perspective, I don't know, but I must admit that New Delhi so far has achieved this. So yes, India has remained neutral. India had a lot of opportunities to condemn Russia at various forums, including during the UN votes, during which India has abstained when there was a chance to condemn Russia. And despite that Western pressure, India has not only not voted for the condemnation of Russia, but even the import of Russian oil, which so far has been minimal to India, has grown substantially this year. So not only that Western criticism did not work, but it also actually, despite this criticism, India began to import more Russian crude. So I would like things to be different. I do see that New Delhi is staying its course. Half year has passed, and India still has not condemned Russia. So unless something really, really tragic happens, which I don't want to happen, of course, I'm not expecting India to condemn Russia. Now, in a nutshell, I think this is simply because we in Europe, and or maybe we could say in a broader West, view Russia as a threat, while India does not see Russia as a threat. In Europe, you have we had issues like assassination attempts by Russian agents in United Kingdom, blowing up of a magazine in the Czech Republic, also most possibly by Russian agents, shooting down of a Dutch civilian plane over Ukraine by Russian forces. So after all this happening, I'm trying to understand, of course, the Indian position, but also please try to understand ours. For us, for Europe, for NATO and the West, Russia is like China and Pakistan for India. China and Pakistan rolled into one. Now, I am aware that Russia simply is not doing such kind of things in India that Moscow is doing in Europe. Hence, you don't see them as a threat, and we do. And that said, I think there is no scope of security cooperation in the future between the West and India when it comes to Russia. They cannot cooperate against Russia because India does not want to cooperate against Russia. I think India will retain that partnership with Russia after all. To the Indo-Russian partnership, then I think it will happen not because of Western diplomatic pressure, but simply because the more Russian military industry is less developed, the more it is not advanced, the more India will have to look for other markets, which is what we saw in the last years when India chose French, Israeli, or chiefly American military products over Russian ones. But this was dictated by necessities, I understand, and strategies, and not by diplomacy as such. So I think the West will growingly cooperate with India when it comes to containing China. This is where our interests converge. And we will continue to disagree. Let's just stress it. We will continue to disagree when it comes to containing Russia.
Right, sir. Sir, we'll shift our focus to the Indo-Russia military ties. Because, sir, you had raised this issue that India had a lot of chances to condemn Russia over the past 6 months, but it has not. One of the reasons which we think behind this is that 80% of Indian defense equipment are of Russian origin. If you look at our tanks, we operate the largest number of T-90 tanks outside Russia. If you'll see, sir, we operate the largest number of Su-30 aircraft, the MiG aircrafts, something I think which Poland also operates on a small level. So there is a fear in the Indian defense establishment that if we were to antagonize Russia, our entire military can come to a standstill due to logistics issue, due to spare part issues. Because although, sir, we are trying to move away from Russia by diversifying our buyers market, but at the same time, sir, the truth is that 80% of Indian defense equipment is of Russian origin, and we need Russian spare parts. So how do you think, sir, this particular issue is playing into India's decision?
Yes, well, I'm certain it is an absolutely crucial issue. I'm not certain because of any private opinion of mine, but simply because this is what many Indian commentators have been saying as well. So the way I see it is this. When you look at the trade numbers as such, Russia is a very minor trade partner to India when compared to many other countries. Like China and the US are many times more important when it comes to the total trade exchange for India than Russia is. However, Russian export as such, not only Russian export to India, but Russian export as such stands on two legs. One is various kinds of natural resources, which they have a lot of, and the military products. So while these are do not create so much economic value in the broader picture, just to give you an example, Indian exports to Russia until last year were something like 1% of India's total exports, and Indian imports from Russia were like something like 2% of India's total imports. So that's Russia is not really a major trade partner for India. However, and military products, they have strategic value that far exceeds their economic value. It doesn't matter, what I mean by this is that when you buy, let's say, plastic toys or guns, even if their value an import from country A to country B, even if that value would be similar, the strategic value of weapons is, of course, crucial, and of plastic toys is none. So that said, although the Russian industry and the Russian economy seems to be a kind of giant on clay feet, it still offers not only to India but certain other countries in Africa or in Asia important products which those countries are not getting from elsewhere. And this is why I completely understand why India has not condemned Russia. And I do believe that this dependence on energy cooperation and security cooperation, these two forms of dependencies are why India is not criticizing Russia. Exactly. What I would also like to add to this is two aspects. One is we all know about the dependence on military products. I would like also to add, like to your point more than to my points, that within the energy cooperation, while media focused on crude imports, what is really crucial is that India has been importing nuclear reactors from Russia. Now, that's not like a natural resource. It's far more. It's a strategic right. And Russia has been helping India in building nuclear power plants as well. So this is another very crucial aspect of the strategic partnership between India and Russia. While crude is a new factor, I'm not sure how long it will last. I understand that those imports of oil are only important this year because Russia is desperate, and it's likely that Russia is offering India a discount price, which can only, continue up to a certain point. So that's it. My conclusion would be, it all depends on two kind of dependencies, the security and energy one that India has with Russia. But this also means that in case the Russian economy and industry falls as a result of the war, if it crumbles, it goes into crisis, which I don't know if it will happen. It is, I think, one of the possible scenarios. Then the Indo-Russian partnership will also crumble with this, because there is no ideological alignment, right? That used to be in the Soviet Union. That is one level of relationship between Moscow and New Delhi that was lost. Communism and the Cold War, global rivalry are not the aspects that are influencing the cooperation between New Delhi and Moscow anymore. So it's not ideological, I believe. It's not really even geopolitical. It's simply about Russia offering certain products to India. And in case they are not able to offer them anymore, I think that partnership will crumble. And I think if it is to crumble, it will be for this reason, for economic and technological reasons. And of course, I would like to add that in my private view, I would actually like it to happen. But I am aware that this is not an outcome which India would like to see, at least not until the Indian industry is much more self-sufficient in producing its military products. However, this is something that may be happening already because, India was buying military products from both Ukraine and Russia. And recent media reports from India do suggest that there have been delays in the procuring of those military products for India from Ukraine and Russia. So, contrary, I think, to many Western commentators, or let me put it this way, I agree with many Western commentators that the Indo-Russian partnership may fall, but contrary to many commentators, I think it will fall not because of that criticism, but simply because Russia at certain point will not be able to provide India with what India needs, especially that Indian economy is growing and is needing new technologies, and usually advanced technologies is what the West can offer and not Russia.
Right, sir. Sir, I remember reading an article from your side in the Diplomat on the Indo-Russia trade. I think it was dated 4th of October. So
Yes.
we'll put the link in our description, and our readers who are interested on knowing more about it can go through it. Sir, moving on to Pakistan's realignment. Sir, if you'll see in the past 2-3 months, Pakistan and US, they have come very close. General Bajwa, he was received very warmly in Washington. Pakistan was put out of the FATF Great Grey List, much to the dismay of India. And Pakistan also got billions of dollars of aid money from IMF, which is controlled by the United States. At the same time, sir, Pakistani shells, Pakistani mortars, and Pakistani equipment, they surfaced in Ukraine, because we had videos where Pakistani made shells were being inspected by Ukrainian soldiers. So, do you think that uh, Pakistan is now being propped up again as a punishment for India's stance on the Ukraine issue?
Well, I cannot say about the propping up part because it may be a generalization, but I will address this for sure. Let me start with a general remark. We certainly do live in an era of I'm sorry for my pronunciation, multilateral global relations instead of, a Cold War era where things were much more bilateral. And many nations, if not all, play this game. Ukraine is not the only country to be singled out for this. Just to paint a wider context, let me give you a few examples. Firstly, India has been purchasing military products from not only both the US and Russia. India has also been purchasing military products from both Ukraine and Russia. India is also a client, or has been until the war, a client for Ukrainian military products and services. And it only, I understand, stopped because Russia invaded Ukraine and the Ukrainian industry is hurt and focused on something else. And let me be frank with you that India has been also playing and is playing that multilateral game. US is certainly playing that multilateral game too, just like India is trying to retain a partnership with both the West and Russia. US is trying to retain a partnership with both India and Pakistan. I know how people in India and commentators in India, like I understand yourself, feel about this, but somehow the US has been successful in this. And the same way, Pakistan is hoping to somehow, retain its partnership with both the US and China. Such games are, usually dangerous, but nearly everyone plays them. And I just want to say that, I don't like this framing when, Ukraine is singled out for selling military products to Pakistan. I believe if it is okay for India to buy from both US and Russia, if it's okay for Pakistan to have been receiving military products from both the US and China, then if we accept this multilateralism, then it is similarly okay for Ukraine to play this game as well and trade with military products with both India and Pakistan. And of course, India is free, if India chooses so, to stop buying military products from Ukraine if New Delhi would want this way New Delhi does not accept that Ukraine is selling to to Pakistan as well. However, just remember, I mean, if India does it, that's okay. Let's just remember that this sanctions game and not buying game and condemning game is also played by everyone the same way. If we accept this, then the same way US can stop, selling to India, which I think they want. But I'm just saying that we should be fair to each side of that multilateral game. Now, as for US Pakistan, do I have a little more time to address this?
Right, sir. You have, sir. We have 10 minutes.
My opinion about the US foreign policy toward Pakistan is that it's a folly, it's a mistake. I understand they assumed that they need Pakistan to fight against Al Qaeda and Taliban in Afghanistan. I think they were completely outmaneuvered by Pakistan to a point where the US had to leave Pakistan, Taliban had to leave Afghanistan, then Taliban, who are Pakistan's proxies, took over Afghanistan, which is a terrible outcome. And I must admit to a mistake I made when that happened last year. I believed that the US will not want to cooperate with Pakistan anymore for two reasons. One is the one I already mentioned, because Pakistan outmaneuvered the US in a very cunning way, I must say, but that was the outcome was terrible for the people of Afghanistan. So certainly that was not fair. And the second reason we paid the US cozying up to Pakistan is because of growing Pakistan-China cooperation. So actually, I don't think Pakistan will play any role in Ukraine. I wouldn't be sure if there is any US-Pakistan connection going on there. I simply think that if their exports from Ukraine, export of military products are being stopped to Pakistan or India, it's only because of the devastating Russian invasion rather than some diplomatic decisions. But I do admit, although it may be a separate issue completely from Ukraine, I do admit that there is some attempt by the US to warm up ties with Pakistan, which again, if it happens, I think it is indeed happening. I'm kind of rubbing my eyes at it because I didn't think it will happen. I think it's a mistake. It's a bigger mistake than it was before, because now the US is not even in Afghanistan. So why would they need Pakistan? And Pakistan is clearly a much closer partner to China. So why would the US help Pakistan with issues like the recent delisting of Pakistan from the Financial Action Task Force gray list? Is puzzling for me, because I don't think Washington will achieve anything. If they think that this is how they can win Pakistan away from China, then I think they are mistaken. But, well, I would stress again, this is their foreign policy. And, well, Indian foreign policy or Ukrainian foreign policy, for that matter, or Russian foreign policy. I may dislike many of those aspects, but I know that this is how this game is played. It's a multilateral game.
Right, sir. I think, sir, we have touched upon all the aspects of today's topic. Sir, before we end our discussion, very briefly, sir, we have one question from our viewer, and we were wondering if very briefly we can get your views on it. Sir, Atul Mishra, our viewer, he asks how much Poland and Europe in general will change at the society level once this conflict will die down. Sir, your opinion on this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry I took too long on earlier questions, and now we have little time for this question. I am not an expert of this on this. I'm just one person living in Europe and in Poland, so that will be much more of my private views. On the society level, one thing which certainly is already happening is that we're growingly anti-Russian, and for good reasons. Certainly in Poland, in much of Eastern Europe, wherever we speak of countries which are closer to Russia. I'm not sure about the West, but to some degree, I think as well, there will be an anti-Russian mood, and it will persist longer if this conflict goes on. Secondly, I would like to believe, I stress this, I would like to believe that at least the Polish society, and I hope other European societies as well, will become more pro-Ukrainian and more willing to help the Ukrainian refugees also in the long run, because even if war ends tomorrow, which I don't think will happen, but even if it does, and the country will need to be rebuilt. So in a way, to a degree, I saw it happening, in the sense that, and I'm proud it happened, that I saw growing compassion towards Ukrainians, at least in Poland. It's hard for me to speak of other countries in which I do not live. However, a more frank response could be that we are also seeing a form of polarization with, I think, a larger chunk of society becoming growingly pro-Ukrainian and anti-Russian, but also there is an element, especially on the far right, who maybe not all of them are pro-Russian, but certainly many of them are anti-Ukrainian. So in case this situation, this war persists for months and years to come, and we will be helping Ukrainian refugees, which I hope we will be, for months and years, then I think the change on the society level may unfortunately be a form of polarization between a major chunk of society wishing and trying to help Ukrainians, but also a part of the society who is against this. It's something we have to deal with, and I hope those who are in support, those who are for the support of Ukrainians will still enjoy the upper hand in the society.
Right, sir. Sir, I think we have touched upon all the aspects which we started from this episode. And till now, sir, we were only reading your articles on ISSF, and today we had the privilege of hosting you, although virtually, but still we had the privilege of hosting you for a discussion. Sir, there were a couple of fans of yours on our platform, and they were messaging us, when are you going to have Shri Iwanek for a discussion? And we told him, hold your horses. We are in a discussion with him, and he will surely come. So I think these two guys who were so wanted you to come, I think they will be very happy with this discussion. And sir, thank you so much for your time, and sir, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to hear your views on this topic. Sir, namaste, and thank you so much for coming on our show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.